We have a hole in one of our window screens which is too large to ignore, along with some small holes on the bottom of the screen. We also have a pretty decent sized hole in our slide door, so today I will be replacing the screens on both of them. And it's actually a very easy job, so if you've never done this before, I am confident you'll succeed from the first try. Here are the tools you will need for this job, and you don't really have to have all of them, but they do help make the job easier. According to the new screen roll, all you actually need is a spline tool and a utility knife. I bought a 25-foot fiberglass roll of screening, which will be more than enough for this project. I started with the easy one first, the window. The first thing you want to do is pull the old spline out, which is this rubber gasket that holds the screen in place. Most of the time, you will be able to reuse the old spline that you pull out on the new screen, but if you get unlucky, your spline is going to be brittle and it's going to break into pieces as you take it out. If that's the case, you will need to buy new spline as well. It's not very expensive, so it's a good idea to buy some when you're buying the new screen roll. After the spline is out, pull out the old screen fabric and unroll the new screen over the window frame. Cut the needed amount off the roll, ensuring that you don't cut it too short. If the ends are rolling up, sometimes it's helpful to flip the new screen over. Next, I lay out my spline around the window frame. Since the old spline is still good, I will be reusing it with the new screen. And this is the part where the spline tool comes in. It has two rollers. On one side, the wheel has a groove in it, and on the other, the wheel has a rounded edge. You don't really have to do this pre-forming part with the rounded edge like you see me doing here, but it does make the job go a little smoother. When you're using the spline tool on a window, you usually don't need to use any clamps or stretch the screen at all because the window is small enough where it kind of stretches itself out. But when we get to the slide door, I'll show you an example of how to use the clamps. Once the channeling is done, we are now ready to push the spline into place. Using the other side of the spline tool, the side with the grooved wheel, press hard and roll over the spline. The trick here is to not rush. Take your time rolling it because when you roll too fast, the wheel can slip and damage the screen. Ask me how I know. If you're reusing the old spline, it'll stretch out longer than it previously was. As you can see here, the spot where the corner used to be is now further along. But that's okay, let's carry on. If you don't have the spline tool, you can still get this done without it, by using a flathead screwdriver to push in the spline. Or even the ends of your scissors or a butter knife would work. It's just going to take you a lot longer. Just look at how beautiful the end result is. It always feels nice to see the brand new screen in place. Now, all we need to do is cut off the excess screen material with a utility knife, or whatever other blade you have on hand. You want to cut with your knife right over the spline and into the outer side of the frame. On this part, it's even more important not to rush and go slow. It's rather unpleasant to get this far only to slip with the knife, cut the screen, and have to start over. I don't mean to pat my own back, but the finished result looks amazing. No wrinkles, no folds, good stuff. Let's move on to the screen door. I usually start off by finding the corner where the spline was cut off, and I pluck the end of it out. In my case, a small piece of it broke off, but that's okay. If this doesn't keep happening, I don't think I'll need to use a new spline. But really, if you had to, you could even use a bunch of small pieces to piece all of this together and it would still work. It's just going to take longer. Many slide doors have deeper tracks than windows, and oftentimes these tracks can have a bunch of debris inside of them. If you see that your track is really dirty, it would be a good idea to clean it out before you proceed. Because the screen door is much larger than a window, using clamps really helps to prevent the screen from sliding around. If you don't have clamps, you could also use some tape to hold down the screen, or simply just put something heavy on top of the screen material to pin it down. I like to clamp down the bottom of the screen door first, and start putting in the spline from that side as well. With the deeper tracks, I always use a screwdriver to push the corners in place. After I'm done with the bottom, I move my clamps over on one side and start putting in the spline on the opposite side. Here we can see that, as I was pre-fitting the channel, a few big ripples were created. If you see that happening, simply pull the screen back out, stretch it out once more, and try again. Once the first two sides are done, the clamps are no longer needed. Instead, gently stretch out the screen as you are pushing the spline in place, but don't pull too hard as that can cause it to tear. As usual, there's a piece of spline left over, and if we look at the other side, we see that it's too short, but I'm sure I'll even have a little extra once I'm done. Let's see if I'm right. When you are finishing the last side, go slow and make sure that there is good tension on the whole screen. Stretch it out slightly as you are rolling along. And if you see that there are loose or wrinkled areas, pull the spline back out and redo that section. Keep in mind that this only works with fiberglass material. On an aluminum screen, once you form that channel, that's pretty much permanent, and if you have to redo it, you would have to restart with a new piece. But anyway, luckily we're not dealing with aluminum here. We can see here that I'm done pushing the spline in. And as expected, we even have a little piece left over. With a deeper track like on this slide door, cutting the excess screen off is even easier. I was easily able to cut it all off in one big piece, which, I must admit, is pretty satisfying. The end result looks very nice. But what if your screen door has a handle that is in the way? With most slide doors, you cannot go around it, so you will need to take the screws out and take the handle off before replacing the screen. And before I end this video, I also want to show you an example of how to fix a loose screen without taking the whole screen door off. First, you will need to pull out the spline where the loose area of the screen is. After that, you simply stretch out the screen and put the spline back in. And remember, you don't have to stretch it hard because it gets stretched on its own when the spline is being pushed into the track. I like to push in a few spots with a screwdriver first and then finish it off with a roller. If you end up with a piece of spline bulging out, you should be able to push it back in there like you see me doing here. And that is all I had. You are now a certified window screener. But before you go, let me tell you something interesting. According to a recent study, 6 out of the 7 dwarfs are not happy.